Lead me to some soul today. Oh, teach me, Lord, just what to
Welcome, everyone,
say.
to episode number 76 of a series of episodes that we have called Leading Others to Christ. Those of you that have been watching and listening to these, you know that during these episodes, we're going to be focused on the subject of evangelism. And one of our goals, and we have several, but one of them is to stir us up to love and good works, as the Hebrew writer said, but especially in the area of reaching our family, our friends, and our neighbors with the gospel of Christ. My name is Dan Barker, and I'm an evangelist with the Vestavia Church of Christ in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. And those of you that know me, you know that I'm passionate about our subject today. And I have been ever since I obeyed the gospel when I was 21 years old in Owensboro, Kentucky. And over the years, I'm serious. I mean, right away, I was trying to teach family, friends. I was so excited and wanted to share what I learned with others. I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody had worked with me. But anyway, and I want to use some phrases that I use almost in every episode, but I've been striving to learn how to teach others, how to sow the seed, how to be a fisher of men, obviously, and women, how to make disciples, how to persuade men and women, and especially how to teach others to teach. And that's part of this whole podcast thing that we're doing. But I always refer to what Paul said to Timothy as he was having this discussion with young Timothy, where he said to him, in all the things that you've heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men and women, of course, who will be able to teach others also. And then later in that chapter, and I've always loved this, he talks to Timothy there about being useful for the master. And I know that's one of my goals, and I'm sure that's our guest today. I know that's one of his goals as well. And it should be for all of us. How can you and I be useful for the master? But anyway, we came up with this idea, and some of you have heard me call it my COVID project, of trying to find those Christians that are doing this, the Christians that are out there wherever they might be, preachers, elders, deacons, couples, women, find out who they are. And once we've identified them, to interview them and to find out what we can, to learn from them and see how they do what they do. How do they set up their studies? What tools do they have? And where are they working? All those type things. And that's what we've been doing with this podcast. So we're excited to have today with us somebody I think we're going to learn a lot from. But his name is Austin Lewis. Welcome, Austin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We're excited that you took the time to do this. And it's a cold day in Birmingham, Alabama area. Where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Lufkin, and it's pretty cold here too by Texas standards.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a big weather storm coming in, maybe the first one, and a lot of snow in the country and that type thing. But
yeah.
we're so happy that you're here, and our guests may not know this, or our listeners, but every guest that we have, I always ask them for 3 people that they know that I need to interview, and one of our Nick Angel is the one that I haven't done that before, but Nick Angel is the one that said I need to talk to you, Austin. So I hope he knows what he's talking about. I hope he gave me good advice here.
I hope he does too. No, Nick's a great guy. Nick and I know each other from when my wife and I lived in Jackson, Tennessee, and when he was preaching there in Jackson, Tennessee, and we got to know each other. Went on vacation once to Gatlinburg together with another young couple there from the church there in Jackson, and just really enjoyed spending time with Nick during our time together in Jackson.
Yeah, he's I really enjoyed the interview with him. I've said this too, and obviously Austin and I have never met face to face in person. And 80% of the ones I've interviewed, I've never met, face to face. And technology is great because we can do things like this.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get started. We always start out with what we call the old elevator pitch or the short bio. Yeah, I see he's laughing because he's seen some of these before.
Yeah.
But if you would, there's people out here that may not know who Austin Lewis is, and tell everybody just real quick where you were born, how old you were when you obeyed the gospel, and just kind of bring us up to speed. Are you married? What's your wife's name? Do you have children?
Yeah.
Just bring us up to speed here.
Yeah, I'll do my best to bring you up to speed without taking up too much time. But I
Right.
was born in Nashville, raised in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Spent most of my childhood there. Moved away for college to go to Florida College for 2 years, then back to Middle Tennessee State, and then on to Western Kentucky. Um, Met my wife at Florida College. Dated for a couple of years, broke up, got back together eventually, and we've been married now for 8 years. I needed to double check my math there. And just had our first kid 6 months ago
Oh,
almost, and so we're getting to
congratulations,
enjoy the this stage of life with a young kid, a young baby named Jackson Paul. Um,
Jackson Paul.
I I obeyed the gospel at 19. I was raised going to church like so many of the guests you've had on before. I was raised going to church, but faith did not come easy for me for a variety of reasons, but it was a very hard fought path for me to obey the gospel. But I eventually obeyed the gospel when I was 19, the night before we left for my sophomore year at FC, and tried to follow Christ ever since then.
Well, thanks for sharing all that. And you know, everybody has a story, obviously, and that's one of the things I've enjoyed about this is to hear the stories, and some are very emotional. And I did not grow up in the church. I was not exposed to these things until later on in life, and I didn't obey until I was 21, as I said. But it's just fascinating the paths that everybody has been on, and the stories are great. And obviously, God, since He made us, He knows that we like stories, and the Bible is full of stories.
Yeah.
And then and everybody that we talk to, everybody that we worship with, our neighbors, the stories there, and that's one of the key things in evangelism is getting to know people where they start sharing. They feel comfortable enough with you where they start sharing some of their stories. Then there's some God, Lord willing, there'll be some good opportunities there. So let me, may not it's not a silly question at all, but how old did you say you are?
I am 35 right now.
35. Okay. Now, you're an educated guy, Florida College, Middle Tennessee State, Western Kentucky. Why are you? I'm going to ask you the why question. Why is Austin doing what he's doing? Of all the things that you could do with your life, why are you a preacher? Why are you doing this?
So a couple of reasons, I guess, is the best thing. So a buddy of mine, Adam Pogue, who's also a mentor, called me about 2 or 3 years ago and said, "Hey, buddy, I'm moving to Texas again. The church I'm moving to wants to do an internship. Are you interested?" Adam knew that I'd been doing a lot of fill-in preaching at small congregations, churches without preachers. Had been doing that for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. And he just reached out with that opportunity, and I talked with the wife. We visited the church in January of 2020 and made the decision to go ahead and let's do this full time. But what's so interesting, and I think we'll probably loop back to this and discuss this in more detail later, it really started because of a relationship I had not only with Adam, but with a man back in West Tennessee named Jason Bennett. And after one of our community studies, he pulled me aside in the parking lot of the Starbucks there in Jackson and said, "Look, Austin, you got to put up or shut up about this preaching thing. You either got to go do it or you got to shut up about it." And that was really what got the wheels turning in my head, that I needed to make a decision. Am I going to do secular work and at least community studies in my spare time, or am I going to devote my life to doing this on a full-time basis? And
You
then
know,
that
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
also, and that led us to move into Jacksonville, and from Jacksonville, after a year internship there, we ended up in Lufkin, which is about an hour south of Jacksonville.
You know, that's we could talk a long time about that. You said Jason Bennett. Is that his name?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How long's it been since you talked to Jason?
Oh, we moved away during COVID. We sold our house during COVID. I think the last time I spoke to Jason in person would have been March in 2020.
Okay.
But we've kept in contact, text messaging,
Good.
Facebook
Good.
type stuff.
Yeah.
But it's been a while just because of travel and schedules and stuff.
Sure. I started doing this a long time ago, but when I hear people's stories about maybe it was somebody they didn't grow up in the church, and it was some friend that cared enough about them to take the time to set up a study and teach them the gospel, and I'll say, are they still alive? And if they are, reach out to them and say thank you. If they're close by, go give them a hug, send them a card, do something that they cared that much to take the time to do that.
Yeah.
And because we're surrounded with people like that, and we just have to take the time to connect with them and share this good news. And but yeah, but I love that he told you, say it again. He said, "Shut
Put
up
or shut up. Put up or shut up." I can almost go back to that exact spot in the Starbucks parking lot and tell you this is where he told me that. It was just one of those conversations that you need to have and that need to be had more often, quite frankly. And I don't think I'll ever forget that conversation.
I tell people all the time, have you ever thought about writing a book? I mean, I know you're a young guy, but I tell people all the time. And now I've got people telling me, have you thought take your own advice and write a book? So that you need to write a book, and that would be the title. Put up or shut up. That'd be the title of the book. That would be good.
I think my mom may buy the book, and that's about it.
Oh, me. Oh, Matt and I, we'll make a commitment. We'll buy one.
There we go. I got 3 sales.
Still here. Yeah. All right. What is your wife's name?
My wife's name is Allison, and she's from Jackson, Tennessee. That's how we ended up there.
Okay. Well, when you brought her up earlier, I wanted to make sure that we give Allison a shout out, and the baby. Your lives have really changed, right?
Yes.
We're excited for you. That's wonderful.
Yes.
All right. There's so many things we could talk about. Let's jump right into. You've heard this on some of the podcasts. Would you share with us a conversion story that you were a part of, or that you heard? Share that with us if you would.
Every conversion story has its different story. We've been talking about stories a lot today, but one of my favorite stories is probably my more recent story, and it's involving one of the young women here at church. She was raised at this congregation, and I remember, one Sunday, I was teaching our monthly teen class, and I happened to make eye contact as I was looking at the kids as I'm teaching the class, and you could see the wheels were starting to turn in her head back in, I think it was May or June. And I just kind of made a mental note of that and kind of followed it. And a couple of months later, I look out there and I'm preaching, and I happened to make eye contact close to the end of the sermon, and you could see like the deer in the headlight realization that I need to obey the gospel. And I think it was that Sunday or the following Sunday that she obeyed the gospel. And that's been one of my favorite conversion stories so far, because you saw that deer in the headlight realization. I'm a sinner. I need Jesus. I need Jesus now. This can't wait. And you saw the full progression with someone you care for, you care about. And that's one of my favorite ones to this point. We had another older lady just recently obey the gospel, and I love that conversion story too. Just so many. But that one with the young woman here at church is probably one of my favorites so far.
Well, and it probably always will be, just because of the how it impacted you. And we've said this a lot too. you can't really fully appreciate there's a reason they call it work too, by the way,
Yeah.
right? It's work. It's hard. And, Paul likened it to be the military and being a farmer,
Yeah.
or, sports. But anyway, it's, to see that and experience that, it's like, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
other young ladies like that, or there's other older
Yeah.
sisters that you were talking about there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just gets in you and it's a part of you, and that passion just grows, and you go, who else is there?
Yes.
Right. And it's like, it's
Yeah.
contagious. It's contagious.
Yes. And with the young woman, in both of these conversions, the older woman and the younger woman, they were about a week or two apart. And it was just this period of, rejoicing here in this congregation where I'm at. But it was so awesome when the young woman, when she was baptized, that her dad got to baptize her. And to see the parents and the family, their emotions, as their daughter obeyed the gospel, and to see the dad being able to baptize his daughter. That was just an incredible thing to be able to sit there and watch and witness. It was really just one of those moments you won't forget.
Well, it's emotional, but also all the others in the congregation, they weren't seeing what you were seeing, because you could see her face, and you are, the connection that you made with her in the teen class. But how important is it for others in the congregation to see that this gospel,
Yes.
if I could say it still works. I mean, and that's part of keeping the fire going, and say, well, where the group sees that too, because it makes you think. I think it makes you think back about the day that you obeyed the gospel personally. Reminds you of those people that were surrounding you, and I you know what I'm trying to say there. Go ahead.
I was going to say the gospel still works. It's been 2,000 years since Jesus came, lived, and died there on the cross and was raised from the dead. But 2,000 years later, that gospel that saved 3,000 at Pentecost there in Acts 2 still saves souls today. And that's the message that we need to be proclaiming and sharing, and make the center point of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us, I don't think I asked this early on. Let's backtrack a little bit. Tell us about the congregation there. Tell us about the group, if you will.
So I'm very fortunate to work with this group here at Union Road. It's a great group of Christians and disciples. I have a lot of friends that are preachers or have preached, and I've heard some nightmare stories, just to be honest, about young preachers in their first work sometimes ending up in places that are extremely difficult. And I have not experienced that where I'm at. The elders here are great. The members here are great. They have welcomed us with open arms. And there's an older preacher here named Pat Jones, and he, on a very personal level, has been great to me. One of those things, as I entered that internship there at Jacksonville with Adam, one of those hopes that I would end up in a congregation long term with another preacher that I could work with, to continue to learn in a Paul and Timothy relationship, and watch him navigate the work, do the work, and learn from him. Even if it wasn't intentional, you can still learn little pieces of nuggets in it by his example. And he has been fantastic to me. Welcomed me with open arms. His family has welcomed me with open arms. They have been the entire church here is incredible. And we feel incredibly blessed to be here in Lufkin, Texas.
Well, that's so encouraging to hear. And be sure and share this with them so that they can hear. They need to hear that too, not just. I mean, there's a lot of reasons they need to hear that. But in something that you said earlier there too, it's sad, but in a lot of places that's not the case, and there is a preacher shortage right now. There's so many things that have come up during the podcast, but there's a preacher shortage. There's on the average about one conservative congregation closing a week around the country, and you just stop and think about that, and you go, what is going on? And there's a lot of things, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's another thing that's kind of motivated us to keep this podcast going.
Yeah.
Is to stir people up out there and to help them realize that they are to be reaching people in the community. Yeah. If they don't, their kids, they're going to grow up and move away, and the older ones, they're going to pass away. And somebody I was talking to the other day said they're about 2 deaths away from closing the congregation. It's just sad to hear that. But again, everybody that's listening out there, I hope that you'll really think about some of the things that Austin is saying and get serious about teaching others again. I think that let's go back to Allison real quick. What role has she played in your work? I've been trying to. And early on, I wasn't giving the wives the proper shout out that they need. So tell us about Austin. I'm getting her name messed up. Allison.
Yes. Yeah. So Allison's been incredible. We actually started dating before I obeyed the gospel way back. We started dating at FC that freshman year. We're dating for about 3 months when I finally obeyed the gospel. But now as a preacher's wife, she has been incredible. Doing a great job taking care of Jackson. But it's nice to have a wife like her, that if there's a female lady that we need to study with, or I can feel confident saying, hey, you need to build a relationship with her. Can you reach out to her? Can you check in on her for me? And she does a great job with that. There's a couple people that she has relationships, even here in Lufkin, that she's made from a time as a school teacher or time running into people in the community that has allowed her to talk with some people about spiritual things. And we're always hopeful and praying that those will come to fruition. But she's just a fantastic asset. Can I say that? It sounds weird to talk about your wife like an asset, but she is a tremendous resource or an asset to my work.
Well, God knew, go all the way back to the beginning with Adam. God knew he was going to have a helper anyway. But I failed to do that early on in several of the podcasts, the episodes, to bring up the wife, because our Gay has just been a tremendous encouragement. I mean, she's one of the main reasons I obey the gospel, because going all the way back. And but they and women have such a key role in evangelism, and I'm afraid that a lot of ladies don't realize the potential that they have, because they can talk to people and set up studies with people that you and I would never be able to. We couldn't pull that off. So we're talking about that. Tell us about the community studies that you do. Tell us what you're to do there.
I'm glad you brought up this community studies. Right now here in Lufkin, we have a ladies study, meets every other week right now. And it's really awesome to see that group of ladies, how they have taken time every other week to study the Bible together, just as disciples. But they've also started inviting friends in the community to go study the Bible with them. And it's provided those ladies that opportunity to teach other ladies the gospel and to work with their friends and people in the community that they know to talk with them about Jesus. But these community studies, to be honest, aren't original to me. My wife would tell you if she was here that everything I do is pretty much a copycat of somebody else. And so I've seen what the guys up in the Northeast are doing on Meetup, and I took what they were doing and I tried it there in Jackson. And we eventually, over 3 or 4 or 5 years, with the support of a couple of the men there that I will be grateful for their support to the day I die, grew to about 5 or 6 weekly studies in the community at coffee shops or Chick-fil-A, just trying to reach the lost, trying to connect with people that we didn't know in the community. And then here in Lufkin, we have a couple going as well. A men's study on Thursdays, the lady studies every other Tuesday, and we usually have a Saturday study, but because of some weddings and some baby showers and weddings and all sorts of stuff like that. The last couple of weeks we haven't had it. But those are
No, thanks for sharing. Because it's like, and it's, I know what you meant when you say, borrow things, nothing original with you or whatever. We're all that way. I mean,
yeah.
And that's why we wanted to start this podcast too, was to find out what else is out there. Some other, it reminds me of when I coached at Florida College years ago. There was one of the teachers there. I won't mention his name. Maybe I should. But he came to me and he said he was going to write. I was talking about writing a book a while ago. He said he was going to write a book. And I went, really? What's the title of the book going to be? And he said, Selected Stolen Sermons. so there you go. Yeah. That'd probably be a bestseller. Selected. Oh, that's a friend from the past. It's a name that's with Roscoe Knight. Taught psychology there and was involved in he was the announcer at the basketball games and just a super fella. And hadn't thought about Roscoe in years. So, and he's from Alabama, which is where he would love it that we're in Alabama now. But Matt just gave us the signal, Austin. And so you've heard this, and one thing that we've tried to do every time is one thing. So somebody's listening to this and you got stirred up a little bit and there's seriously, and sometimes it's just a comment that somebody makes or to start, that describes us in a positive way. That describes me perhaps in a negative way. And but if somebody wanted to get involved in evangelism, there's not just one thing, but what would you say would be one thing that they need to do to get started?
Just do it. I mean, it's overly simple to say it, but just do it. Try something. It may be a community study at a coffee shop in your town. It may be asking your neighbor or your coworker to sit down for a Bible study. It may be asking someone on your kid's baseball team over for a barbecue, and by barbecue I mean smoke meat or maybe a grill out. But just do something. Just try something. Along the way, you're going to learn stuff. You're going to learn what works well in your community. You're going to work what doesn't work well in your community. What works in New York City may not work in Lufkin, Texas. What works in Lufkin, Texas may not work in New York City. But try and see if it works. And once you find what works, use it and try to just build relationships with the lost. Try to show people we care. Tell them your story, listen to their story, and do what you can to share the gospel. I'm a big believer in community studies because we were talking earlier. A lot of times there's that pressure in a Bible study that I have to know all the answers. You don't. If you're doing a community study and you're sitting down with other disciples studying the Bible and someone asks a question you don't know the answer to, you've got a couple of buddies, you've got a couple fellow disciples. One of them may know the answer. And so that lowers the pressure. So that's why I'm a big believer in community studies. But just do something. Just try something in your town, in your community, in your circle of friends. There's something you can do, all of us can do, to reach the lost. And it's just finding that little area, that little gift that Austin has, that little gift that you have, that little gift that every one of us has, that we can use to reach the lost with the gospel.
You know what I thought you were going to say, not to be silly on a serious subject, but what's the one thing? Put up or shut up. I thought that's what you would say. That would your Jason, he would like when he watches this, he would love to have heard you say that. But we could talk so long, and that's a big part of what we're working on, and that's what I'm doing here where I am now is seeing and working with other people, business people that are here at the congregation, teachers, coaches, the ones that have networks of people, and so many times people don't think about how many people that they know. I'll ask people, well, what is, do you know your mail person's name?
Yeah.
All right. Who delivers your mail? And they go, well, I recognize him or her. Sometimes I
Yeah,
wave, but just go out and introduce yourself
yeah,
to
yeah,
him or her. Just simple things.
yeah,
The servers that wait on you. Find out what they're if they. A lot of them have name tags, and you can call them by name. And if we
yeah,
had time, we've got a Gay and I've got a study going with a young lady that we met. She's a senior in college here, and she was a server at a restaurant that we went to. And one thing led to another, and we've had in fact, we're studying with her again this evening, and Lord willing, and she's seeing these things, and Lord willing, she'll obey the
hmm
gospel.
yeah,
But that started from just having a little conversation with the server that was
yeah,
taking our order at a restaurant.
yeah. I know another story just like that that another friend of mine is has shared the gospel with a server they met at a restaurant on a Sunday afternoon
Yes.
after worship. She mentioned something about wanting to be baptized, and one thing led to another, and they have a study set up. I don't know the results of that study yet, but I need to check in on it. It's just every human contact, every relationship we have with our mailman, as you mentioned, with the server at whatever restaurant we may go to, every relationship is a vessel to share the gospel.
Well,
And if I can go back to what you said a moment ago, it's time for us to
yeah,
put up or shut up uh,
yes,
uh, about that. We need to start getting serious. If churches are going to keep their doors open, you mentioned one church is closing a week. If churches are going to keep their doors open, we've got to start reaching the lost. If we're going to
absolutely.
be the church that God wants us to be, we have to start sharing the gospel and reaching the lost with the message of Christ.
Well, and to get real serious on it, I think about what Ezekiel said about the watchman, and then
Mm,
what Paul said to the elders at Ephesus. And I'm paraphrasing now, but when I was with you, I taught you everything, and there's no
yeah,
blood on my hands. And what a
yeah,
horrible thing to think that that we would be held responsible one day, and where we find ourselves standing there with blood on our hands because we didn't
mm,
share the
yeah.
gospel with people that we knew. Well, our time is up, Austin. I can't, but
Oh man.
if somebody wanted to reach out to you, are you willing to share your contact information?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Best way to get in contact with me is either my cell phone. That's 615 796 0939. Shoot me a text message if I don't pick up. Um, with all the spam calls out there, let's be honest, if it's a strange number, we don't always pick up.
Correct.
Or my email, which is Austin, AUSTIN, dot Lewis, LEWIS, dot TN at gmail.com. Both of those I'll pick up. I'll respond as fast as I possibly can.
Well, again, thank you for taking this time on an early Friday morning and doing this with us. And Lord willing, we'll meet in person one day. And but keep up. I just want to encourage both of you. Keep up your good work there, and there'll be hard days, and just see past that and help each other get through it. And but keep doing the work, and you'll be blessed for that. So again, thank you, and share this with your friends that you
Yeah,
know, yeah, share it with the congregation there, and who knows who it might help
yeah,
touch or help
yeah.
get things. So thanks again, brother, and we really appreciate and tell as I said, tell the whole congregation that we said hi and praying for the work there.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for spending the time over the last several years doing this. This has helped so many preachers like myself as we've looked for sermon ideas or illustrations or ways we can reach the lost in our community. Tools like this are just invaluable. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that encouragement. So, all right. Well, everybody, we'll see you on the next episode. Thank
Few
you.
there
Bye bye.
are who pray, melt my heart and fill my life. Give me one soul today.